Okay, so this weekend I actually went on like a night out in Oxford, and not gonna lie, it was pretty heavy night, and I woke up the next day, and I don't know if you ever got this before yourself, but I often feel very anxious, like after a night out, like I kind of get it as like a hangover. I just feel very anxious, and part of that is like I'm worried what I said, what did I do when I was drunk, that kind of thing. But I've noticed that I feel like you could take away every aspect of what you could have possibly done wrong. You could have absolute certainty that you've done nothing wrong, said nothing wrong, or any of that, or didn't make a fool of yourself on a night out, and yet still potentially get this sense of anxiety, right? I've heard a lot of people call it hangxiety, right? Which I think is a bit lame, but whatever. And yeah, I think my point is, I think there's something that goes beyond just. I don't think you're actually anxious about what you did that night when you get anxiety, whatever. I think it's something about the state of mind that alcohol puts you in as you come off it that makes you anxious, basically. Like, you know, I don't really know the science behind it. I had this weird theory, like I was thinking about that. You know how alcohol kind of relaxes your body. I think that can sometimes allow yourself to get in touch with kind of parts of you that kind of trauma, get in touch with trauma and stuff like that, and maybe anxiety kind of is you trying to push away from that trauma. I don't really know. I think there's all kinds of theories about anxiety, but anyway, not the discussion for this video. But I woke up and I really I wanted to get rid of this anxious feeling that I was having. So I just went on YouTube and I started looking at all these videos that I looked at for relaxing breathing exercises and stuff like that. And I ended up going over this one that I'd seen before called the Buteyko breathing method, which is this really interesting breathing method where you basically don't breathe as much as you want to. You create what is known as kind of an air hunger inside of you. So the method that I was being shown in this video was you basically breathe normally, and then just every now and again you just hold your breath for 5 seconds, and then you go on breathing normally and hold your breath for 5 seconds again, and you just build up a little bit of air hunger, and it really clears your brain fog if you do it properly and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, I found it really interesting, and a few days later, I was again on a big YouTube rabbit hole, and I was watching this guy called Elliot Tulsi, or Elliot Tulsi, I don't know how you say his name, but he's this he's this YouTuber who is hugely successful. He's been doing YouTube for 10 years, and he does videos these kind of talking head videos where it's just him and the camera, and they have 1 million views, some of them. He's really amazing stuff. But anyway, he was showing me this video, or he was showing this thing in this video where he was about how he was basically opening up his body to allow himself to breathe more deeply, and a lot of his exercises were the complete opposite to what these other kind of more typical things like the Buteyko method are of breathing less, breathing slower, breathing more calmly. I know there are only exercises to open his chest up, but it was still quite interesting. There was one he'd do where he'd just sit there with his mouth open and just breathe like that for a few breaths. And I just thought it was really interesting that you basically have you have one aim, which is basically to be more in your body, be more present, be more relaxed. And yet people are going about it in two completely different ways. One group of people is saying focus on breathing less, breathe more softly, breathe slower, whatever. And then there's this other guy, Elliot Tulsi, and to an extent people like Wim Hof as well, who are saying like, oh no, breathe, like, you want to open up your chest, you want to breathe more deeply, you want to breathe more intensely, that kind of thing. And I get it, I know it's only an exercise to open up his chest. He's not saying that like you should breathe like that all the time, but I did think it was quite interesting. And one thing I did notice about this Buteyko Methods video that I was watching was when the guy was doing it, he wasn't actually breathing very deeply. He was just breathing very shallowly and very, just not very much. And anyway, I thought it was interesting because you see that there's, I don't know, when I think of a lot of this kind of meditation and sort of mindfulness exercise, I often imagine someone who's quite, like, very relaxed, very chill, very calm, but someone who's also quite kind of, they often don't have like that fire in them that is kind of charisma. They're often not very charismatic, basically. And well, you might say, like, what do I mean by that? Well, this is a bit of an interesting one, but I think what charisma boils down to, really, when you really think about it, is it's just energy. It's just how much energy can you give other people. We often think of charisma as like being savvy with social situations and whatever, but fundamentally it's just being energetic and lively and being able to transfer that energy to other people. And like, there are many ways that you can do that, but fundamentally that's what it boils down to. You know, like your Tyler Durden, or who else is examples of someone who's charismatic, or I don't know, Andrew Tate or Hamza. You know, these guys, they're not very relaxed when they're talking on a podcast or on a YouTube video. They're very energetic. They're very lively, and that's what charisma boils down to. Basically, it's energy. How much energy you have in your body. And it's interesting that a lot of these mindfulness content creators that I've seen, who sort of advocate for or recommend breathing very slowly, very kind of calmly, often don't have that kind of spark. They don't have that charisma. Like, they're really nice people, really, and they're like very relaxed, and they're definitely like mastered the art of like being present and relaxed or whatever. But you know what I mean? Often they just don't quite have that kind of, that sort of fire within them. And this is just a theory, this is just a wild theory, but maybe it comes down to like their breathing. Like, maybe it is just the way they breathe. They're breathing very shallowly, and because their training is focused more on breathing slowly, breathing with intention, not taking in too much oxygen to overpower the system. And as a result, they're very shallow breathers. And I remember reading in The Way of the Superior Man, there's one bit in it where David Dada says, if you don't breathe deeply, truly deeply, you can't recharge your batteries. And I thought that was such an interesting way of putting it. Like, you can't recharge your batteries. And like, if you're just constantly breathing very shallowly and breathing very relaxed, you know, and not particularly deeply, you have less energy, and energy is charisma. And that's why a lot of these guys, even though I envy them because they're very spiritual and very relaxed and whatever else, they often don't have that kind of, that spark. But then you look at someone like Elliot Tulsi. I mean, like, his YouTube videos, like I say, he's extremely successful, and you watch the way he talks on camera, it's like, it's magical. You know, and you know, part of that is like he's talented, whatever, he's a good speaker, whatever, but I think a lot of it boils down to the fact that he's embraced this sort of breathing method that is more focused on like opening up your body properly and breathing deeply and using every single part of your lungs, rather than just breathing very shallowly and very slowly and not overpowering your body, right? And same with Wim Hof. You know, that guy's got loads of energy. He's like, I swear he's like in his 60s or something ridiculous like that. Like, he's definitely older than 50. and yet he's got so much energy. And again, I think it's because he spent a lot of time just really focusing on this deep breathing, you know. So anyway, I think there are basically two things that you want to do with your breathing if you want to improve your breathing. One is like breathing slowly, breathing mindfully, breathing gently, not like that. You sort of, they say that you're not really meant to, if you're doing the Buteyko method or something like that to calm yourself down, you're not really meant to feel air coming out of your nostrils. Like, there is that whole side to it as well. But then there's a completely separate side of breathing deeply and focusing on that. And rather than worrying about all this kind of mindful stuff, just focusing on breathing into your body and just opening up tense parts of your body so that you can really recharge. And anyway, I think you need to do both, basically. You need to combine both together, and you need to exercise both types of practices in different parts of your day, depending on what you want. And just combine that together. And that way you get kind of the mindfulness of the first camp, but then you get the energy and the charisma and the fire that is your birthright from deep breathing. So yeah, that's my take on it, guys. Thanks for watching as always. I'm doing some coaching at the moment, so top link in the description. If you're interested, it'd be great to hear from you. And apart from that, guys, see you soon.